Sir, good
Good
morning.
morning, sir.
Sir, my voice is clear, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sir, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Sir, good morning, sir. Please.
Take care.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to today induction program, AICTE ISTE Induction Fresher Program on Business Intelligence and Big Data Analytics. And today our resource person is P. Radhakrishnan. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
P. Radhakrishnan, professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering from National Institute of Technology, Warangal, Telangana. And he is also acting as a BOS person of our department, CSC. We are having a long relationship with sir also. And he is currently working as a professor and head of the department of CSC in NIT Warangal. And before working as a professor in the NIT Warangal, he served as a principal of research scientist at Infosys Labs, and he has done crucial researches over there. And he is associated with research project leading to fantastic intelligent systems and analytic solutions. He served as an faculty for NIT Warangal and IIT Hyderabad also. Dr. Radhakrishnan also served as a faculty at the Institute of Development and Research in Banking Technology and also a scientist at an National Informatics Center, Bhopal. He has been advisor to the many public and private sector banks in India for implementation of end-to-end encryption, wide data of warehouse and business intelligence solutions. Dr. Krishna is also a member of IIT Advisor Committee and Insurance Regulatory under Department of Authority, and he has many achievements and awards and papers which he's been contributed. Sir, please continue, sir. Sir, we warmly welcome you, sir. Please continue the section, sir.
Yeah, thanks for the nice introduction, and thanks for the organizers for giving me opportunity to interact with the participants of this online FDP program. Let me share my screen and then.
Sir.
Sir, good morning, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation, Radhakrishna, sir.
Yeah, thanks and thanks a lot. Thanks. Can anyone please confirm that my screen is visible and I am audible?
Sir, your screen is visible. Your voice is also audible, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good morning to all of you. I cover in these 2 hours mainly the decision trees and then move to the random forest. Maybe in between I may introduce why this kind of a random forest kind of a models are important with respect to the bias and variance trade-off. And maybe in the next some other day that I'll try to cover the regression analysis. And actually, I'll start with the classification principles. But sometimes, maybe in the next session, you may be having a thorough discussion on the in-depth discussion on the classification. So, just I will introduce the classification and move on to the decision trees. So, if you broadly look at the learning problems, they are we cover like 2 learning paradigms. One is the supervised learning, and second is the unsupervised learning. Both are actually for a given data, so both approaches will form the groups. But in supervised learning, the data was given to us is usually call it as a label data. The label data. Just 1 minute. I changes on Sujit changing. Changes. 78 changes. 78 इनको प्रॉब्लम है 67 is okay. FDP లో అన్నమాట. Yeah, when we are having a label data, and formation of these groups is driven by these labels. So one of the fundamental aspects we need to understand is why we call it as like a supervised learning. Here, when this kind of a label data, if we change these labels, the formation of the groups will be different. That means this is actually driving, this label data is driving in the formation of the groups. That means this is as acting as a supervisor, that is supervising the entire process of the grouping. Whereas in unsupervised learning, we are not having any additional information, but having only the data from the natural grouping of this kind of a characteristics, we are grouping it. That's why we call it as a unsupervised learning. So in both the cases, we are actually ending at the formation of the groups, but in the classification, that is supervised learning approach, we are actually, we know the group labels. The group labels are known to us, but whereas in unsupervised learning, the group labels are not known, but once groups are formed, then we'll give a name to that. So maybe we'll go through some few more in the supervised learning. Then people also today talking about reinforcement learning. So it's like almost like a feedback system kind of thing. So if we are having these actions may be appropriate, then we can give a rewards, and the actions are not as envisaged by us, then we go for a negative. So that means we rewards or we do penalties based on that the model will be done. So if we have a sequence of the decision, the idea is, can we maximize the rewards? Okay. So then self-configurable systems, self-organized systems, they are actually self-learning capability they are having. Because here we are trying to making the system to be trained, but in the self-learning systems, the system will automatically learn based on the environment and the actions will happen. And today people are talking about the deep learning. With the advancements in the neural networks, people are having a kind of a feature engineering, which is the more core for the traditional algorithms. So that is part of the deep learning techniques. So just let us have some idea on the supervised classification. We are giving a labeled training data. So that means we are taking some kind of a problem, given a data, we usually split the data into two parts. One is the training, another is the testing. Of course, you can see some of the books, they say validation also, but that is a different aspect. But we can, at a high level, we can understand the data is pertained to training or testing. Now this trained data, using some algorithm, we build the model. And this model is useful for us for later point of time. Whenever you have a new example of that model, so we can infer or we can predict what that particular example belongs to, which class that belongs to. So in the case of decision trees, it is like mostly a rule. The model is nothing but a set of rules. So we'll more focus on how to arrive at the rules from that. So the entire aspect of in the supervised learning aspect, supervised classification, the training is the crucial. So if you say that, okay, I am having this training data set, and I am building a model from this using training set, using any algorithm, it could be like a decision tree, Naive-based algorithm, KNN or SVM, neural networks, it could be any algorithm. But training is more important. And one of the fundamental things that we have to remember, many times people who are working in research in this area, they think that, okay, I build a model for everything, I got a good accuracy. And then we need to look at the real world examples. And practicality, how much is practicality? So the training data, as long as this training data represents the universal, training data represents the universal, then only we can say our model is perfect. If you can see, some of the new samples are coming, which was not seen in as part of the training data, obviously we cannot expect a good outcome from that. Right? So always we have to give an importance to the finding the training data that is more complete, in the sense that the essence of the entire knowledge of that organization for that particular problem is part of this training data. So that means once we have this kind of a training, you can predict a new data points. So in other words, this training data, we can say this is like a database D, and these class labels we are having a C1, C2, C3, like a class labels, right? So we are trying to find a new one for the new data point. We have to try to find a class, which class that belongs to. So in other words, we can say we are trying to come out with a function, right? We want to come out with a function of these variables. The variable means the data which you are having here. So if you look at if I am having a lot of objects, and if I have a buckets, maybe here could be like a square, could be circle, could be rectangle, could be triangles, right? If I have 4 buckets here, 4 boxes, I can say. So from this box, if I pick up one and keeping into the one of these box, normally if you ask a kid for playing, you say that keep it. So whenever he says a triangle kind of a thing, he will place here. If he's like a rectangle, he can place into here. If he's like a circle, he will place here, right? So that means he's trying to look at the characteristics of the object and then keeping into the corresponding box. The same thing what we are doing in the classification also. So given the data points, all the data, we are actually grouping them into defined labels, defined groups. So that means we can call this is like a database D having transactions T1, T2, Tn, that is tuples, the n tuples it is having, that is database, or you can say the T, the n are the objects. And we have a classes, like a set of classes C1, C2, C3, C4. So we have a C1 to Cm classes are there. The classification problem is we need to come out with a function, the mapping function from D to C. Okay? We're coming from D to C, where each of these Ti is assigned to one class, because each one is assigned to the one class. That means, in other words, what we are doing is we are trying to dividing this entire data into equivalence classes. Some of you are working in the fuzzy or soft computing side, they know the equivalence classes, right? So now there is a prediction. There is another term called prediction, is also called a regression. Is also this regression or prediction is also a classification problem, but we have in the prediction we are having the infinite number of classes. That means it's like a numerical. Okay, the numerical we have an infinite number of classes may be there, whereas in the supervisor classification the class labels are discrete. Like here, square, circle, rectangle, triangle, maybe high, low. The sentiment could be like a positive or negative, right? So in that way, that we are having the discrete data. So that's why discrete data usually we call like a finite set of samples, right? This is classification. So to have a formal definition of classification, given a collection of records, which we call it as a training data, where each record contains a set of attributes, and out of that one of the attributes is named as a class. That means I am having a database, of course, relational data. So out of all the things, any one attribute I call it, will treat it as a class. That means this is a class label information will be available here. Need not be at the end, but for easy purpose, we always keep at the end. And these are the attributes, right? So in the classification terminology, we can say this class attribute is depending on these attributes. So that's why these attributes are called independent attributes, and this attribute is called dependent attribute. If you same thing, if you can comes to this the prediction or regression models, we call this as like a predictors, and this is a response variable. Last one is response variable. So we will see those things in the when we're going for the regression models. So now once we have a data, training data, then our idea, our work is to find a model for class attributes as a function of the values of other attributes. So what is the goal for this classification? If at all, if you give any new sample, suppose if you are giving a new sample like this, new sample, can we assign a class, one of this class to this one? So maybe it could be like a rectangle keep here. So when any unseen record was given to us, we should assign to a class as accurately as possible. What happens if suppose somebody given this kind of an object? This is not a square, it's not a triangle, but it may be close to some of the things. So you have to keep which is close to one, whether this one or this one, right? But it's not an exact one. So that's why we say as accurately as possible. So one of the thing which we need to remember is in the classification case, we have to be forcibly attached to any one of these 4 class labels, because there's no option for us saying that okay, this was a new one, maybe let us now start one more bucket and then give it. We cannot say that, because this data, these tables are here, there, square, circle, rectangle, triangle. This information is available here. So any record you take, it will be belongs to one of these 4 that was actually part of the training data. So this kind of a sample was not trained in the past, which we don't have any information for that. So obviously we may be going to the closest one. In some kind of a papers, research works, you can see they may be put into a misclassification place, because they kept some kind of a threshold, and if it's not meeting this threshold, then usually suppose if I go like this, right, in another object, which may not be not sure where to keep it, and if within the threshold, if it's not able to possible, maybe just to place into a miscellaneous or misclassified things. But this is this is not another class, but the only thing is to identify which are the tuples are not classified properly using the algorithm. So now the goal actually is we try to handle with respect to the test set. So that means we are actually training the model using the training data. Then we'll test the model, because the model which comes to us to test that, to find the accuracy of the model, because the given data is divided into the training and test sets, where the training set is used to build the model and the test set is used to validate the model. So now if you have a data like this, right? So a linear classification model will try to separate the things. Like I can say, I can draw a line, right? So if any object above this red line, I can call it as a group X. If it is below, I can call it as a O class. So that means here I'm having 2 class labels. One is O, another is X. This is a binary classification problem. So that means we have only 2 classes. So that means if I have any data point which is above the red line, we can call it as a class X, and if the data below the red line, we can say it class O. Now the goal is we want to find, if suppose some new sample comes, can we classify this new item, right? Of course visually we can say this is like a separated like this, so I can say this belongs to this class. But when data is in the database, how we can do that? Because these are all like individual points, right? Only except this class label says the color, suppose maybe yellow or violet. So the entire classification process says whenever a new sample was given, how to determine that. Maybe the new sample could be here, new sample could be here, new sample could be somewhere else here, correct? It could be any part of that. So, or we are in the position to classify or not. So this is actually an example diagram to understand the classification. So suppose if we have a data set, we call it training data set with three categorical attributes. Sorry, two categorical and one continuous attributes. And the class label is like here the cheat, having, if you look at the unique variables in the unique values in the cheat is like a 2, correct? One yes and there is no. Now, once we have this training data, use any algorithm. Here, the classifier could be any classifier like a decision tree or neural networks or something. We are building the model. Now, we have a test set and we use this test to test the model. So, we have now two things. One is the training, another is the testing. So, that's why whenever we find the accuracy, we'll say training accuracy and test accuracy. What's the difference? The model actually learned with the samples. Each and every sample was part of building the model. But when you are supplying the test data, we never give this one. We don't give this information. What the information? We know this information because this is also test data, means it's like a continuous. We are divided into two parts. So the test part, we have this information, but we will not supply to this model. We are only giving the data of this one. That means each one is a new sample. I will give the new sample, let me predict what it is. Give the second sample what it is. So now I have like this, a table, which is this is a true value and this is like a predicted value. Okay? So based on these things, I can find the accuracy of the model. But what happens in this case? So we are training this model. And remember, when we say like this, maybe you can get a doubt that can the training accuracy is 100%? It may not be, right? Because how we are building the model because of these values, because these are the independent attributes, this is dependent attribute. Now there are many are there in the no class which may be having overlapping, correct? So if suppose something was learned from one tuple, maybe it has to be modified when another sample was seen. So over a period of time, if you have a number of iterations, usually all these are like iterative problems, iterations, you may be seeing that on some of the example, though it is no, while after building the model, it may not be actually taking. Right? So that's why always we call it like a training accuracy and a test set accuracy differently. Now we move on to the decision tree. If you have attributes like a age, gender, like a savings account, outstanding loans, nationality, so these are the like attributes. One can want to identify whether particular this customer is a good creditor or a bad creditor. That means can we assess a particular customer is loyal to the bank or not loyal to the bank, right? On what basis? Because based on his characteristics. Characteristics is the attributes related to these one. Right? Suppose once I have the data with respect to all the customers information. At the same time, I should also have the label data, right? Because always remember we should have a label data for training, right? So label could be good or bad. So if you have this information, I can come out with kind of a decision tree. Assume that this is like a decision tree. Suppose based on the age, if I say this particular person, the new customer, the one of the customer which is looking for loan, suppose if it's greater than 25, and if the gender equal to male, then maybe he may be a good creditor. Correct? Maybe less than 25 age, and his savings account is having a savings account, and he's also having a loan. Maybe he's going to be a bad creditor. So that means the paths actually will give us some kind of a rules. So now our idea is how a given data, how to come out with this kind of a tree. And if you closely observe it, this diagram, the leaf nodes are class labels, either good or bad. Here it was not printed, but you can say. So that means all the leaf nodes referring to the class labels. Here class label is either good creator or bad creator. All intermediate nodes, from starting from the root to all intermediate nodes, or except the leaf nodes, are the attributes. Could be age, gender, savings account, outstanding nationality, like this are the attributes. Okay. So now the basic idea in the decision tree is, can I come out with a decision tree from this one? So now this is another example. If we have the data about each customer, maybe it could be a student or not a student. So age, income, student, credit rating, buys computer. So this is actually labeled information. So again, this is like again binary classification problem. Yes or no was there. And you can see again, this is like a tree where you have the leaf nodes all these are leaf nodes, which is actually represented one of this label, yes or no. And all other attributes are, all other nodes are correspond to attribute. Like here the age, and then this is a student, right? And then credit rating. Like that, you can have all the intermediate nodes are attributes. Okay. Now let us see. Just take a simple example. Then we can understand the fundamentals of the decision tree. So given these are the objects were there. Okay. So all these objects belongs to two classes. This is again a binary classification problem. Suppose this belongs to one class. Maybe assume that these are like a negative class. Okay. And then rest of all objects were positive class. This is the information was given to us, suppose. This is the information was given to us. If you look at these objects, one thing is I can say there is an attribute called color. Right? You have a red, green, and a blue. Then some of them are rectangles, some of them are circles. Right? That means I have a shape. And then some of them objects are big, some of them are small. I can say size is this one. Now, using this one, is it possible for me to come out with a tree? Suppose consider an object is, you take the color. Just to take an attribute called color. And what are the possible colors? Green, red, and blue. So I can say there are three possibilities. So I have three change function: green, red, and then blue. Okay. Now you can see. So for the green, some objects are in the negative, some objects are in the positive. Here all red, any color red is having only positive only. The blue, some of them are negative, some of them are positive. Correct? Now that means if it comes to here, this is straightforward. If a color equal to red, I can say the class is positive. Correct? If suppose any object is having color red, I can say it belongs to positive class. Now here, if it comes to here, if an object is green, I cannot decide whether it is a positive class or negative class. Correct? So if I am not able to decide that one, if all belongs to the same class, I can write here maybe negative like this. But that is not the case. Correct? So that is not the case. That means now what I have to do? I have to partition the data. Right? I have to partition the data. Suppose if I do the partition here. What is the partition? How I can do the partition? Maybe I can say the size of the data, because here is a big size, this is a smaller size. Let me take size here, size here. So if size is big, how many options? I can have two things, two options. Size can be big, size can be small. So if it is big, I can say negative class. If it is small, I can say positive class. Because in the big, there are only two objects belongs to the negative class. In the here, there are two objects. In the small, they belongs to the same class. Now comes to this one, third one. In the blue one. Now, can I do the same thing here? Suppose you select an attribute like a shape, because we not use one. You can take a shape. Of course, you can take size also, but you can take shape. In the shape, you have a rectangle and you have a circles. So this shape, I go to the one is like a rectangle side and another circle. Right? If it is circle, both are actually same class. I say it's a positive class. If I take rectangle, but this is I'm not able to do because I divided like this, right? The data is divided like this. Okay. But in this case, these two are not in the same class. One is negative, another is positive. So I cannot decide this one, right? Now, if I cannot decide, then again look at some other attribute. Some other attribute I am looking means I am actually dividing the data, right? Maybe it could be the size. If I take the size, I can say there are two possibilities. One is the big, another is small. Then I can say if it is big, I can say it is negative class. If it is small, I can say positive class. So what is it we have done till now? We are actually taking the data, we are continuously dividing, partitioning the data till all the objects in that partition belongs to the same class, right? So if you're looking here, now what I'm looking is I'm dividing it further, right? So if you look at the tree, yes, so you can see just now whatever we written, the same thing here. The color is red means positive, the green means you have the size, you take the size, big, small, and you take shape and you're going to getting like this. So the given data, we are going on like we are partition like this, right? When you say color, we partition like this. When you take this one size, we partition here. When you take the shape, we partition here. Then we take the square, we partition here. Sorry, size. When you say size, we take partition here. So that means we are recursively partitioning the data, till all the objects in that partition belongs to the same class. So this is actually an example of a decision tree, how we arrived at it. But still, we are only discussing about the visually how we are doing this one, right? But we may be required some kind of a approach to do that. Assume that we had taken this tree, this data, decision tree, or decision trees. We have, of course, the attribute day is only a symbolic one, that each record is what each record means. So we have the attributes like outlook, temperature, humidity, and wind. The four attributes are there. They are the independent attributes. And the play tennis is the dependent attribute, also called as a class label, where again it's also having the two class problem, yes or no. considering this decision tree, we can start with any one attribute, because if you were starting, now whatever we proceed followed earlier, the same thing we'll follow. Take any one attribute, start any one attribute. So just say that one we have gone through taken the humidity as an one attribute. So that means we're starting from the scratch. So now out of the available attributes, we need to decide which attributes we want to use for the decision purpose, and just maybe for the sake any one you choose, like as a humidity here. So if you look at this data, this humidity. So if I want to find how many children may come, right? Just 1 minute, my marker is okay. So now take this humidity. I want to see how many branches that this attribute can be divided. So now if you look at the unique values in this one, what are the unique values in this training data? This portion, right? Some of them are high, some of them are normal. So that means I can divide into two branches, high and normal. And this record IDs you can see which are belongs to the one class, and this is belongs to another class, right? These three belongs to these four portions are belongs to one class, and this belongs to the another class. These records belongs to. Now, what we need to see. Suppose this one you take. If all this one, right? Or what are the things that we are making here? If let me remove this and then. Okay. Now we have these four portions, right? This data, this D1, D2, D4, and D8, D12, D14. If all this belongs to one class, either yes or no, I can say here itself like a yes or no. But that is not the case. Few of them are yes, few of them are no. Right? So now let us start exploring again this branch high. So now just to mask the other thing, just we want to only going for the high things. Right? So which are not all labels are not same. So that means I need to go for choosing another attribute that will help me out. So let us now, because we started with the humidity, now let's take another attribute, wind. So here I am taking the wind. When I say wind, what are the unique values in this wind are there? Some of them are weak, some of them are strong. Okay. So now if I take wind, I can have again two branches, strong and weak. So some of the records were the strong, some of the records are weak. Now look at this branch. That's a D1, D2, D12, and D14. Right? That is strong. You can see these are the strong attributes. And strong, here the two no's and one yes. There no will be two and one is the yes. That means again it's not same, so I cannot decide it. If I cannot decide, then I have to go for choosing another attribute. Maybe this time you can just choose the outlook. Please remember, I am only randomly taking one attribute. There is not like any procedure I am following here. We will see the procedure later, but currently I am just taking it randomly. Any one I am taking. So if I look at the outlook, my procedure is same. To look at how many unique values were there, I had the sunny, overcast, and rain. There two are there. Three are there, three branches. But this is a small data set. I'm having only one record in each one, right? For each outlook parameter, we have only one. Sunny is one, no, overcast is yes, and rain is no. So I'm deciding things because there's only one record was there. Obviously, that same class will come. Suppose if there are few of them are, so if you have more than one, then maybe you require to divide again further, correct? You have to maybe temperature, I not use like I can use the temperature and start dividing it. Suppose you may get a doubt, but all the attributes are over. Assume that when the temperature is not available, okay. Now you have two attributes of Sunny, two records of Sunny. One is yes, another is no. What to do? Normally, in such cases, what we'll do, we'll go for majority voting. Majority voting means if you have like a three records, I can say majority which is coming. If it is a two, again there is a tie. There's a tie. So maybe I'm not able to classify that properly. Misclassification. Right? So, but normally what we'll try to is any one will be assigned. So if there are only two. If it is majority voting, usually if there is an odd number, we'll take majority voting. Not odd or even, but here instead two, if it is more than two, I can take some majority voting. To avoid the try, you can have an odd number. Otherwise, you can choose any criteria, any other criteria you can choose to decide that one. Okay. Now, when it comes to the example, so in the Outlook, because there is only one is there, this one. So now I completed this portion of it. Right? This is the now let us look at the wind is weak, because strong is now completed. You can take wind, the records is corresponding to weak. So here the weak, these records D1, D3, D4, D8, and you can see the many are them are the, so one is no or others are, so two are no and two are yes. So all may not be same. So I need to check for another attribute. Let's look at the Outlook. So now Outlook is again we have a sunny, rain and overcast. Here you can see there are two records with the sunny. Both belongs to the same class. No. Rain, only one record was there. I can conclude that yes, because overcast is also only one record is there. It's also yes. Now we completed this branch also. That means the high side we are completed this one experiment. Now look at the normal. That means where the humidity is having the records as a normal. So now this is the normal records. Correct? Now same thing. In the class labels are same or not? Obviously it's not same. And there is only one is no and all other yes. But see, if all are, this is also a yes, then I can write here itself like a yes, correct? Now what I have to do, I need to check for take the another attribute. Maybe take Outlook. Because you can see earlier I taken the wind, correct? And in this branch, it's not, there's not like any here we say randomly I'm choosing, correct? So I just choose the Outlook. If Outlook, what are the different aspects of the different values? Rain, overcast, and sunny. Right? If it is like a sunny, both are yes. If it is rain, because the first two are rain and this is rain, correct? So here two are yes and one is no. That means I am not able to decide. If it is overcast, there are two records belongs to yes. So I can say this is the class label is yes. Now I have to be still this has to be done, correct? That this is rain. Outlook is rain. So now you take the source samples which are rain. Okay. Here two are yes, one is no. Take any other attribute because I need to check the one more attribute. Correct? Maybe taking like a wind. So it's a wind, there is only weak and strong, the two cases. Now here, this weak means yes, strong means no. Correct? Now, suppose assume that this no is here and yes is here. So wind is, both weak is like yes, but if you say, then weak will be one yes and one no will be there, correct? So those cases comes, then you have to look at some mechanism to resolve that. But for this data, for the example data, to understand this will be yes. That means now we completed everything we completed, correct? So now once we got this tree, this is the tree we got it, correct? One of the interesting aspect of the decision tree when compared to any other model is you can represent the decision tree in the form of if then else rules. And you can say why, what is the advantage of writing an if then else rules? Because even the domain expert can verify whether these rules are validated or not for his domain, correct? Suppose if you maybe in other sessions you may cover like in neural network, no, they cannot explain. This is a black box. They cannot explain how you arrived at that particular result. It's a black box. But here in the decision tree, it is like a straightforward. You can write a if then else rules. How we are writing if then else rules? You can see each one, the class labels, the leaf nodes are class labels, correct? Here, these are the leaf nodes. Now, how many S are there? If you count, just say yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are 6 are the one. Now I can write a rule. That means each path from root to leaf node is one rule. I can say if humidity equal to normal, if outlook is the sunny, I say yes. If humidity equal to normal, outlook is overcast, then yes. If suppose humidity equal to normal, outlook equal to rain, and wind equal to weak, yes. That means I'm each and every path I getting a one if then else. Actually, here I represented mistakenly 5 only, but you have the 6 one. 6 belongs to yes. And same thing, how many are no? 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4 are belongs to no. So if you have 4. Now the union of these things, one union, if you take all these, will be yes, another could be for no. Right? If humidity equal to high and wind equal to strong and outlook equal to overcast, right? These are all one R. That means this is one path. This is another path. This is like this. We have 6 paths here. We have belongs to class S. So if any one of the rules satisfies, this is R means any of the satisfies, then you can say yes. If the 4 rules, you can say there's 4 rules. One of the rule will satisfy, one of the branches satisfy. That you can say no. Now, what is the use of having this decision tree? Means because our goal is to compute the unknown data. So suppose the new sample was given to us, can I predict what is the class label for this? Right? So if you look at the one, suppose you say outlook is sunny, temperature equal to hot, humidity equal to normal, wind equal to weak. Of course, in this particular scenario, we are not using temperature, but not an issue to understand purpose. So now, if I have sunny, this one, what I have to do? Humidity, I'm starting with the root node. See that what the humidity was there. Humidity is normal. So let me go to the normal side. Okay. Then outlook is there. What is the outlook? Outlook is sunny. So the comes season. So yes, okay. That means I can play tennis tomorrow. Correct? So now you can give me any of the values from these 4 values you can give for the new record. I can easily tell whether it is yes or no. I can play tennis or not. I can tell that. You give any values. But only thing is you can see outlook means what are the belongs to the outlook. Either sunny, rain, or overcast. So you can give only any one of these 3. Right? What is temperature? Temperature could be the hot or cool, mild. Right? This will be there. You can see what is the one? Hot, mild, and cool will be there. So you can give any one of these things. But anyway, one only thing is we cannot have in this simple example, we don't have that. But you can take humidity. Humidity could be either it could be higher normal, wind could be the stronger weak. So that means if we are giving these values which are seen in the training data, then obviously I can use this decision tree to find what could be the record here. Now, I think some of you may be having doubt that when you're starting humidity, why should I start with humidity? Why I can't be another attribute? Yes, you can start with another attribute. If you start with the attribute like outlook, you may be getting another tree. This tree also coming from the same data. Remember, data set is same, but I started with the outlook, right? So we get a distribution tree. The rules will be same. You get the inference could be whatever you can want to learn from this one will be same, but the trees are you get a different model because this tree is nothing but a model in this case. So now the question is which attribute I need to choose, because if I choose outlook, I'm getting different. If I take wind, it will become different. If I humidity, it will become different. And even at the same here also. That means one of the important aspect of this one is which attribute I need to choose. That means choosing the next attribute. And of course, the second is the somewhat slightly easier one. How I can split that node. See, now here I am saying outlook, okay, I choose in the outlook. Maybe I'll try to look at some mechanism to say which is the good attribute. The next thing is splitting criteria, because how to split it, how many child nodes I have to prepare. If it is like a categorical data, what I have done, just looking at the unique values. So in each value you can be one branch. But what happens with like numerical data, like a age, suppose. Then I have to convert into the some kind of a groups, binning it, usually call it binning or grouping. You can say some age portion are the maybe young, maybe can I say middle age, can be old age, right? So then I can make into that one. Maybe I can say age is less than or equal to 30, then it could be this could be like maybe 31 to 40, so 31 to 60, and maybe greater than 60. Not only 3, you can have more also, 3 or 6 or 8, whatever you can make it. So there are two things we have to be understand. One is the which attribute I need to choose to split, and then second is the what is the splitting criteria. So these are the two things that we need to learn. Yeah, any questions here till now?
No, sir. Please.
Okay. But always ask, better to ask questions, because otherwise I
Yeah.
will be thinking that one I will be talking to my laptop.
Yeah. Dear participants, please respond. Any questions is there up to now? Yes, sir. Please.
Very good, because they all learn everything. So good.
No, sir. At the time of the last question, they
Yeah,
will ask
I think it is
maybe.
good that you share knowledge. It's not a one-sided, because
Yeah. Your point is in online mode. It is the one of the disadvantages of this one, sir.
we are all faculty members, so we are sharing only. It's not like somebody teaching. No, it's a sharing.
Yes,
So
sir.
you can also share your knowledge. It's good that everybody can share their knowledge. So it's
Yeah.
be more on interactive kind of things. So now let us see that the algorithm to write. Okay. So this is the algorithm. You can say follows like a greedy approach. We are going for a top-down recursive divide and conquer manner. So if you see that the entire if you look at this stage, I'm having the whole data. Or you can look at in the starting position, which I mentioned. This entire data is there here. Correct? When it comes to here, a portion of the data is here and another portion of the data here. Correct? So that means each and every time I'm having a portion of the data. So that's what we call like the entire data is divided into portions, and further portions we are doing it. It's a top-down recursive divide and conquer manner. Of course, if you strictly speaking, there is no conquer step, only divide step only there, right? But approach you can say is a divide and conquer approach. So if you take the root node, all the training examples are at the root node. So if the attributes are categorical, attributes could be categorical. Then we are looking at the unique values of it. If it is a continuous valued, then obviously we have to find some, because we cannot say if the age is so many number people are having age, I cannot have a 1,000 branches. Right? Maybe the 1,000 customers, each one is having a different age, or maybe at least 100. Right? You can have 100 values, different values. So 100 branches will be there. Difficult. If the income more like 1 lakh, right? I cannot have. So I should have a discrete sheet before proceeding further. So these examples, the samples are partitioned recursively based on selected attributes. So which attribute you are selecting, based on the select attribute, you are partitioning it. Then the test attributes are selected on the basis of heuristic or a statistical measure. That's how we'll just look into this gain and everything. Now, how long we'll go like this tree? So what is the stopping criteria for such kind of a tree? So all samples for a given node belong to the same class. If suppose whenever a particular partition was there, if this particular partition belongs to the same class, then I can stop there. Or the second is, I don't have any remaining attribute, because suppose the attributes are over, still I never able to come to the first one, then I can go to a majority voting, or maybe any other mechanism also you can use, but commonly used is the majority voting. Third is, suppose the samples are not there. Because samples are not there, what you will do? We cannot do anything, right? So these are the 3 criteria, stopping criteria are there to stop the decision tree construction. Now, what is the splitting mechanism? Splitting criteria, right? Criteria for finding the best split. So these are the algorithms. Information gain, which is based on the entropy measures. So this ID3, C4.5 or J48. Nowadays, most of the tools are having this J48, right? So these are the same only. These are like extensions. So all these are actually uses the information gain, which is coming from the information theoretic approaches. We try to find the entropy, right? And then second is CART algorithm. The CART means classification and regression trees. It's a very old algorithm. It follows the Gini index. And there is a CHAID one is there. This is chi-square automatic interaction detection. So this is CHAID algorithm also can be used. Now look at some of these things in detail. Suppose this ID3 or C4.5 J48, these are use the information gain. That means what is the gain I am able to achieve by splitting the data. Right? That means I have possible attributes 1, 2, 3, like this I am having. So if I have 1, is my gain is more. If I split it into 2, is gain is more, or 3 gain. So I will find out the gain for these 3 possibilities. After that, I choose an attribute where I having a more gain, high gain. So now how to compute a gain? We will start with a entropy measure. And we are familiar with the entropy measure, right? Entropy is nothing but a minus P log P. This is what we use, right? Of course, the symbol is negative symbol because of the reverse direction, but P log P is the one. So that means if I have one particular attribute, right, I may be having this one. Just 1 minute. Hello. Okay. Can you call me? I'm in the class actually. Can you call me later? I will call you back. So now, when you say a data set D, right, I can go for a minus P log P for entropy for entire database. I can say minus Pi log Pi. We'll go to an example. No need to be very much worry about this minus P log P, right? But you have a more attributes, you say you are taking P1 log P1. minus P2 log P2 like this, right? Then once the data is splitted, that means this D is split into like a D1, D2, D3, DJ, suppose. Now you can find with this is attribute A, this is attribute B, this is attribute C. So if you are taking the attribute with A, now how many records are there in this one? That's mod DJ divided by the total number of in the D, right? D multiplied by this entropy of DJ. DJ means you're calculating similar way. Now that means the initial one is the D. By splitting the after A using, you are getting the this entropy. The difference is nothing but the gain. That means gain is equal to entropy D. That means that the whole database is there. What is the entropy? Then after the splitting this one, what is the entropy? Right? This is the gain. This is called gain. Now the same thing I will do for this all the other D1, D2, D3, DJ also do it. Finally, I choose which attribute is actually giving the. Suppose if I say B is giving higher gain, then I can say next is I can go with the attribute B. So of course, this is normally how we can calculate the P log P, correct? So if you're having a zeros are 3 and 4s are 5, right? So what is the entropy of the target variable? So usually you can say there are two classes, correct? Two classes data. So one is like a minus 5 by 8 for one, 5 by 8, 3 by 8. This is for the 3 is there. So there are total 8 samples. So you can say this is like a PA means the probability, right? Probability means the 3 out of 8, 5 out of 8. So 3 out of 8 log 3 of 8, 5 by 8 log 5 by 8. But the same way we calculate the entropy measure. Take this is the example data. This is training data having 4 attributes: age, income, student, and credit rating. Okay. So by computer you have the yes and no. There are two classes. Now look at the entropy for the entire database. In the entire database for the entire data, you have two class labels. Right here earlier we mentioned like a 0 and 1 here. Similarly here you can say yes or no. So how many belongs to yes? How many belongs to no? Actually, what is the entropy of the database is nothing but entropy. You have say minus P log P with yes, minus P log P with no. Right. So how many records are in yes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 records are with yes, and 2, 3, 4, 5 records are no. That means I am trying to find a database D which is having 9 are the S samples, 5 are no samples. I am trying to do with this one. So I can say for the S, I can say by 9, total number of samples are 14, right? So 9 by 14 log 9 by 14. But this one is 5 by 14 log 5 by 14. So if I calculate that, I will get this value. So entropy, this is like symbol. E 9 means yes, 5 is no. I have minus 9 by 14 log 9 by 14, minus 5 by 14 log 5 by 14. So this is the minus, this is 0.940. Not worry about the point. You can, the symbol, the negation symbol need not to be worried about. You can say 0.95940. So this is the entropy of the whole database for these two classes, right? Having the two class data. Now take any attribute, like it start with the age attribute. Now I am trying to find the entropy of age D. That means here we can see this is age, instead of A, we're taking the age, right? So if you take age, how many unique values are there here? So you can see some of them are less than 30, some of them 31 to 40, some of them are greater than 40. Right? So you have a 3 groups are there. So age less than or equal to 30, 31 equal to 40, and greater than 40. Now see how many samples were there. How many of the samples are how many samples are in the less than or equal 30? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 samples which belongs to the, which are having less than or equal to 30. Right? That means mod of D age is nothing but 5. So now, how many out of how many samples? This 5. Five by 40, right? See, 31. This is 31 to 40. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I will have for that 4 by 14. Because third one is greater than 40. I am having 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 1. So I can have a 5 by 14. So now that means dj by modulus of dj by modulus of d into entropy of that one for the 5 samples. That means you take the only these 5 samples. Less than or equal 30. This let me tick it. So this is less than or equal to 30, less than or equal to 30. This is less than or equal to 30. This is less than or equal to 30, and this is less than or equal to 30. So these 5 are there. Out of 5, how many are yes? How many are no?
3 yes, 2 no.
3 yes, 2 no. Right? That means
No, sir. 3 no, 2 yes.
yeah. This is 1, 2 is yes. 1, 2, 3 are no. Right? That means 2 are yes, 3 are no. So I can write E2 comma 3. That's what is the database, right? It is showing. Similarly, you can have for 4 by 14, like this is like a 5 by 14 into U2 comma 3, and 4 by 14 like a, you can see here that's what represented, which is a positive sample, negative sample, yes or no kind of thing. How many yes, how many no? Here 4 comma 0, and in this case 3 comma 2 are there. These things. Now we know how to compute E2 comma 3. In similar way I can do it. That means minus pi log pi. 2 by 5 log 2 by 5, right? And then minus 3 by 5 log 3 by 5. So that means what this indicates, age is less than or equal to 30 has 5 samples out of 14. Out of 5, 2 are yes, 3 are no. That is the representation of this one. If this is over, then the simple thing is how you can find the entropy. Entropy for this age attribute is 0.694. So before split 0.940, if I split age, 0.694 is the one. So the difference is nothing but the gain due to age, 0.246. So now I need to calculate the same thing with the income, student, and credit rating. Out of these 4 values, you see that which one is the highest, that you can choose. But of course, in this case, the age is the better, higher gain than all other 3. So we are choosing age and go further. So the same thing that we repeat at each and every node. So this is what the measure the J48 algorithm works. Any questions here? Okay. So you can extract the classification rules from all the trees, right? Then you can usually, when you want to look at the performance one of a classifier, we usually look at the confusion matrix. That means I'm having the data with the true values, true data, that is true labels, and the predicted labels, right? So for the each and data set, this is the independent attributes. I can have a true label and predicted. So now you take this as like a values as a actual data. True means the actual data, and this is like a predicted data. So how many samples were actually predicted true are also true here. You can suppose you have a two classes. One is the positive and is the negative class. So how many of the positive classes of this one are predicted correctly? This is called a true positive. How many are negative samples are correctly classified? That means there, because I can check, right? How many are there? I can check. They're called true negative. Because some of them may be negative, but they may be come as a positive, but they are predicted as a positive. It's a misclassified, right? It's not correctly classified. So, but you are treating it as a positive, but actually it's a negative symbol. That means you are giving a false impression. This is false positives. So they're called FP, false positives. The same thing, a positive sample, maybe you can you see this is like a positive. Suppose something is like a negative, that's okay. But in these cases, it's a negative sample. A positive sample is treated as a negative. This means you are digging a false impression, false negative. So that means you can find out all this, how many records were there as part of the true positives, how many are true negatives, then how many are true positives, how many are true negatives. This is actually useful to find the accuracy measures. Once we have a confusion matrix, we usually go for accuracy measures. That means now, of course, anyone can tell easily what we mean by accuracy, right? These are the true. TP is actually correctly classified, TN is correctly classified, FP is not correctly classified, FN is not classified. That is total number of samples that are correctly classified divided by the total number of samples. That means what is it? TP plus TN plus FP plus FN. So all these samples we take, this is nothing but accuracy. Assume that when you have 100 samples, out of 100 samples, you got the 70 was the TP, 70 are 2 plus 2 plus 1 70. By 100, you say maybe 70% accuracy, right? Into 100, you can say 70% accuracy. Along with the accuracy, we always define precision and recall. They are more important. Precision and recall. Of course, they are actually good measures for the information retrieval. The precision is nothing but TP by TP plus FP. What is TP plus FP? You identified this TP plus FP as a positive samples. Right? You identified the positive samples. Out of that, very few are, not very few, some of them are true, rest of them are false. So that means how many you retrieved into this positive class, out of that, how many are actually true? So these are the actually how many you extracted. These are the how many you are actually true positive. True positive by TP plus FP is the precision. Same thing, we will have a recall measure. We say TP by TP plus FN. What is TP plus FN? You have supposed to have TP plus FN positive samples. Out of that, you are able to only predict correctly TP only. Right? The TP plus TP by FN, this is recall measure. So from this precision recall measures, we have one more measure called F measure. So this is nothing but the harmonic mean of the precision and recall. So let me go to this example, these formulas. You can have the TP plus TN by TP plus FP plus TN plus FN, and the TP is a recall is a TP plus FN. Precision is TP plus FP, and F measure is 2 into recall into precision by recall by precision. This 2 actually usually it will be supposed to be beta, but most of the experiments they suggest that one to take it 2 value is 2 is a better. Similarly, you can have several other approaches like a receiver operating system curve, receiver operating systems curves, ROC curves, and area under that ROC curves, 10-fold class validation. So several methods are there to identify the performance of each classifier. So you can see this is like a churn management data which we taken, or one of the banking data. With this is the kind of these attributes, and this is status is like a label data. So we have taken the approach. Follow the approach using the training data and the test data. So we use the Gini index because we have chosen the cart as an example, and you can take this one. So these are like a tree was formed, and then these are the rules, like these rules were formed. Okay. Now let us move to the ensemble methods, because now I say that I have one decision tree. Okay, I chosen one attribute or some attributes I taken. So for this data, I constructed one decision tree. Maybe there's a possibility that one, maybe suppose assume that one, I take few attributes only considered and construct this one. Maybe a few more attributes I consider here 5. So I have a different possible combinations of the attributes I have taken, the attribute data I have taken, and then I constructed multiple decision trees. Okay, so that means we are constructing a decision trees of decision trees. Usually it will go to an example like a forest, right? That's why we have an example called a random forest algorithm, which comes out of the multiple decision trees. That means I'm taking decision here by this tree. I'm taking decision from this here, because if I always believe only one decision tree, I do not know how accurate I am. Right? Maybe it may be missing some important information. So now if I have multiple things, I just taken a multiple trees like a tree 1, tree 2, tree 4. Out of this, I maybe take some majority voting or some mechanism I will find out to come to the final conclusion. So if I use more than one models, then I usually call it the ensemble models. Of course, in general, ensemble model may not be same, like always may not be same algorithm. It could be, one could be decision tree, another could be naive Bayes, another could be NN, kind like that. Or you can have, depending on the different portions of the data, either vertical or horizontal portions, you can have one is the decision tree 1, decision tree 2, decision 3, decision 4, like this. So that means you are combining the models and using for decision making purpose, though they are called ensemble methods. So you can see, suppose this is the data was there, you can assume that one these lines were not there, these 3. Now, if you look at any classifier here, if you say above is negative, yes, that is true, but below is also be negative are there. Correct? If you take any one you take. So some of them are positive, negative also there. Here you have the negative. Right? Maybe something may be positive. So you take here. So individually, if you take these 3, you may not get the exact classification. But if you take combinedly, you take 3 together. Now we can see the data which in this portion is positive class and rest others are negative class. Correct? So that's why the advantage of ensemble method means you have this is model 1, this is model 2, this is model 3. The 3 combinedly you are having, you can able to come out of it. So this is like a random forest, which is like a forest, right? You can have multiple trees. You can create it and make it. So what this ensemble method says, because mainly to improve the accuracy, suppose this data set, you split the data set into multiple portions and you can combine some kind of a mechanism, maybe majority voting could be one thing, right? So now this is actually when you are having this kind of a combination, there are 2 broader ways. We have the bagging, boosting, or maybe simply you can call it a ensemble things. Okay. Now the random forest is of the bagging. Bagging means like a bag, right? You put all the things into this bag and take finally one decision. Boosting means I took one algorithm, I got some response. Maybe I'm not able to find, some of them are correctly classified, some of them are not classified. Maybe I can put into something more. Maybe let me say every time I'm trying to boosting it. Like ADA boost algorithms or things, they are boosting. Every time I'm trying to boosting some of the samples, because if all the samples, if it is same, may not be able to predict correctly, right? So that is a boosting. So in the bagging means everything you take and you finally take the average of the prediction over collection of classifiers. In the boosting, you say weighted vote with a collection of classifiers. So there are many of the base learning methods are there, algorithms learning it, but the basic idea is consider a set of classifiers for learning purpose and use some mechanism for taking the decisions. What is the advantage? Because your accuracy will increase, because individual thing may not be satisfied this one. But what happens is, because if you are taking too many algorithms, too many samples, if you take, we may confuse also, correct? That's the basic disadvantage. We may to understand those classifiers. So one of these ensemble models having an issue, there are 3 different problems are there. The important things which are normally traditional algorithms are there that will be overcome by these ensemble models. One is the statistical problem. This is actually we have a too large hypothesis space for the data. So that means you can come out with the several hypotheses like H1, H2, H3, several hypotheses. That means several hypotheses means several reasoning capabilities with the same accuracy on the data, and the learning algorithm choose only one of them, because you are saying now at least you've seen from the data with the humidity you started one decision tree, you got it, and if you start with the another attribute, you got another decision tree, correct? That means you have several possibilities were there, but finally you have to take any one only, correct? Because you cannot say all the things we take. That means suppose assume that one I take in this D2 with this one, and if you remember, correct, temperature was not taken, but the temperature attribute somebody is given how to do it. Because this may not be handling it. Of course, the same to here, but assume that one. So if you go any one attribute, one kind of a model, then there's a possibility that one you may not take some other things. That means if suppose some unseen data is not considered for that hypothesis, then your prediction may be wrong. That is the statistical problem. What is the computational problem? That means when the learning algorithm can give the guarantee, it will be like a best hypothesis. Can we find the best hypothesis? Then third is the representation problem. That means I have a data set, but there is no hypothesis that is actually a good approximation to the target classes, because I have 2 classes. Suppose this data is not sufficient to deal with this one. That means I don't have a represented sample. So our idea is to have a good represented sample of a whole universe, right? If that is not the case, we have a representation problem. So now there are 2 terms, important terms we usually come out. One is bias and another is the variance. So the variance means the statistical problem and the computational problem result in the various component of the error of the classifier. So any classifier you take, they have this variance, and then the bias is representation problem, error of the classifier. So that means if you look at always there's a trade-off between bias and variance. So that means training data is insufficient for choosing a single best classifier, and algorithms are not good enough for the learning purpose, or maybe even the hypothesis also may not be close to our true function. So to understand this bias variance trade-off, in the definitions, bias is the persistent or systematic error of a learner independent of the training set. That means whatever the training set you are having, the model itself is the error is coming in the learner. Learner means the model, right? That means the model that we chosen may not be appropriate. The variance is the error incurred by fluctuations in response to different training sets. That means instead of one training set, if I take another training set, I get a different aspect, right? So that is independent of the true value of the predictor variable, and 0 for a learner that always predicts the same class regardless of training set. So these are actually bias and variance trade-off. So of course there are many of the approaches as given by the people in the literature. So of course it's like a majority voting, because I can take multiple things and give some kind of a weightage, because I say W1, W2, WL. And based on this weight, I can find out the predicted sample, new sample. Suppose I given X, I am predicting. So from the sample X, will go through all these models, L models. Each model is having some weightage. Right? I have some kind of a mechanism to combine this one and predicting it. So normally, when you say voting, we go for majority voting. That means I have multiple classifiers. Out of these classifiers, which is giving like this is yes, this is no, giving this is like no, and this is also no. That means majority voting is like a no. Right? So that's the majority voting. So of course, we have a theoretical examples why majority will work. But now for our random forest case, we say bagging. It's a form of importance sampling where all samples are weighted equally. Okay, usually people call it as a bootstrap aggregating also. I'm just skip this and then we'll go to the directly the random forest. Okay, so bagging classifiers, how we'll do it? Suppose if you take the size of the training set, you will take multiple iterations. In each iteration, you take n instance with replacement from the training set. Replacement means, suppose out of this data, you take n samples. Again, out of this data, you take n samples. Maybe some common may be there, but you take like this n samples. Take n samples. So apply the learning algorithm and store the resulting classifier. So from these samples, you got the one classifier, and this one classifier, another classifier, another classifier. So now, if you get a new data set was given for each of the T classifiers, predict class of the instance using the class. Suppose if I get a new one, I predict value for here, value for here, value for here, value for here, and then I will only return out of this 4, I will return most often, that is majority voting. So let me explain the random forest algorithm. The same thing, except the classifier is a decision tree here. The learning model is a decision tree. So we take the sample n instance with the replacement from the training set. So you can take a learning a decision tree such that the variable for any new node is the best variable among m randomly selected variables, and they store the resulting in the decision tree. What is classifying? So same thing, you are using the decision trees, and we are returning the predicted the most often. So now this is the pictorial representation of the random forest. Have the training set. You take these are called bootstrap samples, correct? You take the samples, bootstrap samples. For each one, you go for the constructed tree, because multiple trees are there, so you call it a forest. And for each one, you can do the predictions, and finally go for majority voting. So the steps also like take the data set, draw bootstrap samples, build the random tree, and then predict based on the tree, and finally majority voting. This is random forest, right? So each one will become a random tree. Is considering a random tree. So maybe for example purpose, this is considering like this: age, gender, income, like this. So this is for the flowchart purpose, the random forest. You can see for each tree, you can have a training data set. You can have some stopping criteria, and see that what will be the best speed for the next level, and you repeat that process. So sometimes we can draw that how the random forest comes, but most of the times random forest gives a good results when compared to the lot of other models. Okay, you can draw the confusion matrix into it. This is like if you have suppose if you're using only one card, maybe the data is like this. If you have 10 cards, 100 cards, and finally this is a card means decision tree, card decision tree, right? So you can see the results, how it will be looking at it. So to summarize it, it's like a more ensemble algorithm, and it is useful for both regression and classification. That means even the numerical data is there as a class label also, you can use it, and it not having any assumptions of the formal distribution. You can automatically variable selection missing data and can be done, and more robust. And this is important is because in the variance, bias and variance, it try to reduce the variance actually. That's why we are getting more accuracy. So if I say variance is less, means there's a lot of stability and accuracy of the models. Okay. So that is the one. So we'll stop here.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Participants, any queries? Participants? Sir, I have one query.
Yeah, please.
Sir, why random forest is better than the other algorithms, sir? Like XGBoost, other algorithms is there. Why, sir? Why random forest is better than, sir?
No, I'm saying, see, all these are like ensemble classifiers, AdaBoost or everything.
Okay.
I'm not saying that compared to the AdaBoost, like ensemble classifiers is better, but among the traditional things, like if you take only decision tree, only naive Bayes, only
Yeah.
better, it will work better. But of course, we cannot generalize that statement.
Okay.
Because each classifier is good for based on the data set which we are having.
Okay, sir.
Based on the training only. So, but if you take a normal decision tree and if you take as a random forest, definitely random forest will give the better result.
Okay.
Because the samples which we have not seen. See, now what will happen is either the bootstrap samples is if you have M attributes, possible combination of attributes you take. That is some subset of that, right? So while you're taking those subsets, definitely, which was not captured in the normal decision tree, it may be captured here. Like the same example, which I say the temperature was not considered in one of the decision tree, right? Maybe the other place may be considered.
Okay, sir.
That's why there's always most of the times you will get a random forest gives a better results.
Yes, sir. Okay. In the chat box, so many applause systems, sir. We will meet on 14th, sir. 14th.
Yeah, 14th we will have, and we can have this.
Yeah.
Maybe
Thank you, sir. Thank
note
you.
down that in the chat box you can note down so that we can.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir, for informating, enlightening, deliver lecture, sir. We will meet on 14th morning 11:45, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks to all of you. Yeah.